Welcome to the How Did We Get Here podcast, the show that allows inspiring women from all walks of life a place to tell their story. Follow along every fortnight as we chat about each woman's challenges, life lessons, and words of wisdom that they have picked up along the way. Everything that has led them to being right here and right now. I'm your host, Jess, and from wherever you are in the world, I hope the story you hear today makes you smile, laugh, and maybe even cry a little. I hope it inspires you and fills your cup up just a little bit more, because in this day and age, inspiration and stories are always worth sharing. So grab a coffee or a tea and settle in for today's episode. And welcome back to the How Did We Get Here podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us today on our next episode. And for today's episode, I'm so excited to introduce one of my internet friends in the coaching space, Kai. Thank you so much for joining me.
Very honoured to, thank you.
So we've only officially met in person once.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was at a Newy event.
Yeah, actually, no, I also met you at a photo shoot back in 2023 in November, and I barely knew you at that point.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. I just remember, I think that's the first time I met you, but then, properly at the new event.
Was it in Queensland?
Yeah.
Gold Coast? Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think I do remember that. But yeah, we actually got to speak properly at the event.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for saying yes to being a guest on the podcast.
Absolutely. I'm very excited.
Yay. Well, since you have already listened to a few episodes, so you know the go. Basically, I just want my listeners to get to know you a little bit more on sort of like a personal level, away from what we do for work, what our businesses are in terms of who we are as people, and sort of give us a little bit of a background into who you are as the woman you are today and everything that's sort of come about in your life that has led you to being right here and right now. So without telling our listeners what you do for work, how would you summarize yourself?
So this is a hard one for me to think about when you sent through the prompts, because I was like, I'm so used to being so tied to what I do for work and when I used to be in academia and stuff like that. I describe myself as very much like a type A person. I'm naturally very curious. I love digging into research. I've always been like that. I really thrive in environments where I can be open and honest and always learning. That's really important to me. And I really love helping people. I think that's the root of what I've always wanted to do, depending on, regardless of jobs and everything like that, that's always been my goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you could sort of give some describing words, let's say someone met you for the first time and you couldn't tell them what you do for work, what are some descriptive words that you would use to describe yourself? So obviously, inquisitive, learning, things like that. What else?
Yeah, very passionate, very ambitious. I think I always set good standards for myself. Yeah, very curious, always wanting to learn. I have not stopped studying since, high school, I've always been like that. And yeah, very much I'm no BS kind of person, very honest, but not in a rude way, but, very much I really value honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I can see that about you as a person. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, because I love everything that you do. I think we've had this conversation just via Instagram message. Just I support how real and honest and raw and authentic you are as not only someone in the fitness space and being online, but just as a person. You can see that as you. And just we've got a few similarities in terms of our little bit of our vibes and aesthetic and music and things like that. So I'm one of your number one fangirls.
Yeah, I love that.
So if you were to sort of take us back, so you've given us a little bit of an insight into your personality and sort of how you are as a person. Take us back as far as you want to in terms of significant moments, life events, things that have sort of shaped your values as a person and, sort of how you've gotten to where you are now and all of those things that have shaped you into who you are now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because if I think about when I was thinking about that question initially, I always knew I wanted to do something in science ever since I was a kid. I was always very naturally inquisitive and curious in that way. And I think growing up, I was always a bit different. I had a really normal childhood, but, good parents who worked very hard to get where they were. Like my mum grew up in a very abusive household, and she did everything in her power to provide like for me and my brother and everything. As far as that, childhood was fairly normal, but like growing up was pretty difficult as someone who, very late diagnosed neurodivergent. It was really hard, like socially. And I very much, it still do really rely on sort of, academia and research and putting all my focus into that, because it's always been something I've been able to rely on. Like when I'm, was kind of that kid in school who would hang out in the library and, stuff like that. So I think like as far as that goes, I always knew I was always really hyper focused on different things growing up, like always like different things in science. And that always continued. And it took me so long to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life, because I think for many of us, it's like, we're always like, oh, what are you going to be when you're older? And we're always, like, as a kid, you're like, I'm an astronaut. But like,
I want to be everything.
That was me. And I was like, I really want to work with animals. Like I wanted to be a primatologist, which is like a scientist who just studies primates. Like I was obsessed. And then like, you kind of go through all these different phases in high school, things get a bit more serious. And it's always been so crazy to me that it's like, okay, you're 18, time to decide what you want to do kind of thing. Because for a lot of us, we go into uni and we might end up dropping out or doing something different or changing degrees, and that very much happened to me. But I don't know, but to relate it back to the question, I did always grow up feeling a little bit different, and I feel like that has also shaped me into wanting to help others and be a role model that I wish I had when I was younger.
Obviously your adolescence was a little bit tricky, trying to figure out sort of like why your brain was that way, why things were sort of clicking the way that they were. So once you left school, what was sort of the first path out of school for you?
So I feel like not enough people know like how many different things in science I've jumped from. So when I was in year 12, I wanted to do forensic biology. So I wanted to get into UTS in Sydney and do that. And I ended up not getting in because the ATAR was like 90 something. It was something
crazy. Oh my God.
But then I just went to Newcastle. I did a Bachelor of Science in Biology. And the good thing about that is it's a Bachelor of Science, you majoring in biology, but you get so many electives. So I jumped around, like, first year trying to figure out what I want to do. Do I still want to go into like forensic biology? I really like genetics. And then I did genetics classes and I was like, this is really hard. Don't like that anymore. I did some environmental science classes and marine biology. I loved it, but it was very depressing. And then towards the end, like I was, wanting to do microbiology, and then COVID happened and there was just a bunch of issues with funding and honors and realistically whether I was going to be able to study there. And then I ended up moving to Armidale for 2.5 years. I did my honors degree in paleontology. I know.
What? What?
I studied dinosaurs. I got to dig up dinosaur bone. I got to prepare dinosaur bone. I got to do talks about dinosaurs.
That's amazing.
I wrote a thesis on like a mathematical formula for estimating center of mass in dinosaurs. So I kind of know my biomechanics a little bit.
That's crazy.
And that was incredible. But like I moved to Armidale and I kind of think about it. I met, one of my closest friends there. I met my partner there. And I brought him back to Newcastle with me. It was really funny. It was funny on our first date. And I always think of this when people ask me like, what's shaped you, is we're having, on our first date, he's asking about what I do and everything like that. And I'm like, I'm doing paleontology. I'm almost finished my honors year. And he's like, do you want to do that forever? And it just kind of, like
it dawned on you and you were like, do I?
And then from then it was like this whole thing of, oh, now I don't know what I want to do.
Oh, yep.
But like in a good way of like, I kind of knew long term it would be hard to get a job, especially in Australia. And, I didn't really want to move to like Adelaide or Melbourne to kind of get a job. And I ended up, working at a gym for 6 months. That's the longest amount of time I've taken off studying. But I was actually I started my fitness certs when I was there. So sort of.
Yeah.
And at that time I got really back into fitness. So when I was doing my honors, so 2021, 2022, I was starting to go to the gym again after kind of COVID. And I got really into fitness again. And then, did my certs and things like that. And then I started my PhD for a year in microbiology back in Newcastle.
Yep.
And then I decided it wasn't for me after a year and a bit, and I went into fitness. So when I was doing my PhD and, working 40 hours a week in research, I was also doing my sports nutrition certificate and like all this other stuff. Yeah, that's kind of the weird, wacky pathway of how many things I've been through. I'm 25 now to kind of get where I am and go, okay, I think I've finally decided what I want
Yeah.
to do.
I think for you though, if you sort of hadn't gone down all those avenues and sort of explored all those, different areas of studying, I don't think you would have gotten to the realization of where you are now.
Absolutely. And my biggest regret has always been my biggest fear was always to be someone who settles for something less, someone who gets to 25, maybe they've married, maybe they've just like settled down in their hometown, they haven't pursued anything,
Mm-hmm.
they've never taken any risks. Like that's
Yeah.
my biggest fear, is like that white picket house where you're just working in corporate for the rest of your life. Like that is my nightmare.
You are preaching to the choir here, honey. My God, yes. That terrifies me.
Yeah, when there's always times where I think maybe I should have just gone straight into nutrition and dietetics or something like that. There's a part of me that's like, I got to do so many cool things in my undergrad. I got to do so many awesome experiences. I got to meet awesome people. I wouldn't have met my partner if I didn't, and really
Into paleontology, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's definitely shaped me, and it's also given me sort of knowledge in different fields as well, which does actually come in useful.
Absolutely. And I just think if you have the capacity to learn and learn very widely and broadly into different sort of areas, I think that isn't going to be everything. Like it's always going to be a positive rather than a negative. But I can definitely understand how there would have been some times, especially like probably in the earlier days, where you were just like, this is not what I want to do. This is depressing. Like I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah.
Were there, so you were saying a little, like, can you give me a little bit more detail about like some of the things that sort of came up where you were just like, nah, this is a red flag. I don't want to do this.
So with paleontology, it was just the lack of jobs, and that's when I should have learned. But like I applied for my PhD in Newcastle. I wasn't sure if I was going to get it just because of the positions available. And I got it, and I was so over the moon because, like, literally, I shit you not, since I was 15, I'm like, I'm going to do a PhD. Like, that was my goal. And I did it, and I did it for about a year. And bless my supervisor from my PhD if he ends up watching this, not that I think he will, but I just wasn't getting the support that I kind of needed.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of bullying going on in the lab. I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't happy. And I remember speaking to my partner, and I was like, I don't want to work in academia. I don't want to work in this life where, for example, my supervisor at Newcastle he had gotten his degrees from Cambridge and Oxford, and he was still someone who would struggle to keep job security. So it was that kind of
Whoa.
where
Yeah.
it was just like, you really have to fight. And I just didn't like the lab. I didn't want a job in it. I knew I'd have to probably end up moving to Sydney or Melbourne, and it just wasn't like the goal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just kind of a realization. And then I took 6 months off, and I really put into my business, and I was like, let's just try this. And if it doesn't work, I can go back to my PhD. But it was one of the best decisions I've made, is, at least I tried it. And it's not to say I can't go back to it. I saw
Absolutely.
something pop up for a PhD in exercise physiology in Armidale, and I was like, listen, if it was a better time, maybe I'd do that down the line. Like, there's nothing to say that, okay, now you're 25, you can't, you're done.
You can't do that
Well, I'm
anymore.
doing a master's degree now.
Yeah. Oh my God, she's back at uni. Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's nothing to say I can never go back to that if I ever wanted to. It's
Yeah.
just like, it just wasn't for me. And those realizations of, I don't want to live this life long term. It's just like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I just want to be a doctor? Am I doing this because it would just make 15-year-old Kai really happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's other ways that make current and 15-year-old Kai happy.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's sort of gotten us in terms of academia to where you are now. You said that during that time when you were working at the gym, you were also studying your certs. So for everyone listening, give us a little bit more detail about what you're doing right now, what your business is all about, what you are, who you are as a coach. And
So I'm an accredited sports nutritionist and PT. So I have an online coaching business, and I have taken a little bit of time to figure out my niche, because it's almost 2 years of me having my business now, like about a year full time, like properly, but like 2 years in total. And I really have taken time to work with different people and figure out what my goal was and what really set my soul on fire, because I had all these different things where it's like, okay, cool, I worked in microbiology, gut health is a big interest of mine. And then I'm also like, thinking about, I really love working with athletes, but what I've really settled on is I really, really get so much out of working with people that are neurodivergent, because I just think nutrition is a lot harder for us. It's very different. And a lot of coaches don't know how to work with people who are neurodivergent. They just don't. And then, when you've got people where it overlaps, because it does often overlap with gut health issues and not knowing how to eat properly and, not wanting to necessarily track calories. And then also like a lot of athletes who may struggle because, for example, they just have downregulated appetite. They may be on stimulant medication for something like ADHD, and just helping them fuel properly. So I really find that working with people like that has just really, really been good for me. But like at the root of my business, it's like what we were speaking about at the start. It's just no BS. It's really honest. It's real. It's evidence-based. Like I take a lot of pride in that, everything I do, to my knowledge, is evidence-based. Like it's all rooted in science and things that work. And I've very much always, really had that as my backing. Like I said to myself when I started, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take on supplement sponsorships, and there's nothing wrong with people that do, but I just think it interacts with my ability to be a good coach and give suggestions and things like that. I think it just is a little bit of a moral dilemma. But like, there are things like that where I see other coaches do certain things and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the person who every day is saying, you need to take this fat burner. You need to take I take this greens powder every day.
So you have to have this greens powder. Yep.
Yeah. Like
when you should be eating whole foods.
It drives me mental. So I try and go, hey guys, don't listen to this. They're being paid to do this, or, this is just what's trending. It's very much like, let's just be real and get to the point.
Yep, absolutely. So I find that so interesting in terms of your niche in your coaching. So I know you've spoken about how nutrition support for people who are neurodivergent. So can you maybe, for people that are listening, and again for me as well, sort of give us a little bit more detail in terms of how you would coach someone in terms of their nutrition who is neurodivergent?
It really obviously depends on the individual. And I think that kind of brings it back to like a lot of coaches, especially like people who are really big in the industry, who really scaled their business, and they do kind of have more or less a cookie cutter plan that might work for a lot of the general population, but it's like how it would work for some of the general population, but it wouldn't apply to athletes, like our nutrition guidelines, for example.
Yep.
I think, what type of neurodivergence a person has will affect their relationship with nutrition. But the truth is that a lot of people with ASD, ADHD, OCD, things like that, are more likely to have disordered eating habits, and that can be a variety of reasons. So one thing that I found is like I myself have sensory issues, mostly with sound, but a little bit with food. That's very common. So I'll find that I'll have people come to me that where they've been told they need to eat this, like a really strict meal plan or something like that. And it's just like they can't stand that. So they won't adhere to it, and then they'll fall off it and they'll feel like a failure. And that happens with a lot of people. It's not necessarily just for neurodivergent people, but if they're getting really icked out by something, it's just going to make them less adherent. And then there's also, I just put a story on about this, but like calorie tracking, it works for some people. It works for me. Like it's fine for some people, but for a lot of people, especially those with ADHD, especially if they're like unmedicated, it can be really overwhelming. It's so much decision fatigue with it. And it's like one of many tools in the toolbox. It's not the only thing that we can sort of use with nutrition. So there are other sort of approaches we can take. Some of my clients will have a meal plan where they have to choose, like a certain amount of like a lean protein source, a carb source, some healthy fats and veggies or something like that. Some of them will have a meal plan, like some of them will have certain hyperfixations on food, and we just work on that. But some people will just like have a food diary, and we'll just work on improving foods, and they'll have some options. And I think another really big one, especially for those with ADHD, is having like grab and go options. So
yeah, definitely.
Meal prep is good, but okay, if we don't have meal prep because we haven't made the time for it, having ready-made meals in the freezer is also really good. But then also if it's something like breakfast, like up and goes, Rokeby shakes, protein shakes, smoothies, like things that are really easy to just take with you. I think that's important to consider, because I think some people will have such a, like you find it a lot with like younger coaches, like I'm talking like 20-year-olds who like such one lived experience of life and what works for them, and they think it applies to everyone. So
exactly,
understanding how individualized people's needs are is really important to how you tailor your coaching to them.
Absolutely. I honestly could not agree with that more. And I think that's part of the reason why I've always wanted to keep my business not relatively small, but I mean like just to me in terms of what I do with my clients, how I coach them. You know, I've been doing this now the same amount of time as you, about two and a half years. And, you know, the way that I coach my clients is so individualized. But I think when it comes to good coaching as well, having the experience of the years that you're coaching, like I don't coach now the way that I coached when I first started.
Yeah.
You know, obviously my morals, my values, my work ethic, the sort of the blueprint of what I want my coaching to be is the same. However, I have learned so much in terms of how to adapt to different types of clients and their needs and what is going to work best for them in terms of being adherent, in terms of hitting their goals, in terms of, you know, getting them to where they want to be. And we as coaches have to be adaptable, have to be so adaptable. Like you can't just be like, okay, well, it worked for this client, so why isn't it working for this client? Like, are you kidding me? Like, bro, no, it doesn't work that way. Because again, everybody's different. Everyone is so different. And I think that's definitely what makes good coaches stand out as well. You know, we're sort of taking that away from, you know, athletes. And when we talk about coaches that coach, you know, competitors and things like that, like yes, obviously there is a bit more of a structure in terms of what you should be able to do, but you know, for Gen Pop and things like that, it shits me to tears that some coaches just don't even sit down to sort of outsource and use other resources at your disposal. Like, hey, I have a few clients that I work with who have a few issues around their relationship with food. And, you know, I co-coach with Corinne and we do, you know, fortnightly calls where she'll implement strategies that works with her because that's out of my scope, you know. And if I've asked you before if, you know, questions about gut health and in terms of, you know, monitoring IBS and helping my clients with issues like that. Because I want to be able to support my clients as much as possible. And I don't fucking know everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to, trust me, I want to, I want to be able to fill my brain with as much knowledge as possible. But I would rather turn to other coaches that I trust, that I rely on, that are experts in their field, that I can provide my clients with as much education and knowledge and support as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have a handful of friends, you know, in different niches and things like that, where it's the same thing. I might ask them for help or I might refer out to them. And I think a lot of coaches are scared to refer out because they're losing a client. And sometimes they'll value that money over referring out when it might be needed. And I think that's really something to consider because I've definitely had to do that before where I've had to say, hey, listen, this isn't a good fit. Like, I think you need extra help. Like, I'd recommend seeing this dietitian or something like that. And I think you build up good relationships in the industry. I think sometimes people are fearful because they think, oh, everyone else is my competition. And it really shouldn't be like that. Like, it should be such a collaborative thing where it's like, hey, this person focuses on this. I think they'd be a better fit for you. Or, hey, I might ask this person about this because I just don't know enough about it. I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, honestly. Yeah. Okay, well, so we know a little bit more about you in terms of work and now what you do. So thank you for that little bit of insight. And again, if there's anyone who is listening who has struggled with their nutrition because they are neurodivergent, please reach out to Kai and just get in contact with her, because having the right support in terms of your nutrition towards your goals will be life-changing, I think. And she is such a great coach. And I always, you know, recommend if anyone has any questions about anything to do with, you know, with your field of work, I always point them in your direction.
Yeah.
But sort of segueing, I want to sort of learn a little bit more about sort of some of your hobbies and your interests that also set your soul on fire, because I'm one of your biggest fans. I love everything you do. I think you're a cool bitch. I think we become, and again, this was definitely something I learnt, especially this year and last year, about myself. Bodybuilding was everything to me, doing shows back to back. And it wasn't until a really big life event sort of happened, my whole world crumbled, where I was like, fuck, I need to rebuild myself. Who am I outside of bodybuilding, outside of this sport? So, you know, I've gone down so many avenues. I've traveled heaps, done all these things to sort of be me as a whole. So what about you? Give us a little bit more background in terms of your interests and other things that bring you joy.
So it's still fitness related, but when my partner and I got back from Japan last year, he had been thinking about re-signing up for martial arts for a while, and we were just so like, we were kind of like gym anxiety about it. Like we just hadn't bitten the bullet with it. And then we got back from Japan where we went to a samurai museum, and it was like, okay, cool. There's actually a place in our suburb that offers a type of martial arts, and we signed up. And at the time I was really a little bit similar to you. Like I had come out of bodybuilding and decided not to compete, and I just was like feeling really lost after Japan because I was like, oh, that was such a good experience, and now I'm back in reality.
Yeah.
I really threw myself
Preach.
yeah.
I love Japan.
But I really threw myself into that, and I just kind of fell in love with it as just a different way of moving my body, because at the time I was so sick of bodybuilding, of I just the same, I'm sure
Monotonous.
you're not allowed to work on your calves. Okay, that's boring. Like, like,
I mean, I haven't done a calf raise in 30 years, and I the biggest calf muscle.
But I've always been the same. I've never really trained them. But when someone says you're not allowed to train them, I'm just like, I want to train them more.
What a trainer.
But I was so over it, and I needed something else. Last year I tried strongman for a day. I tried powerlifting.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Stuff for fun, but I really fell in love with the keto, and I haven't been as consistent lately just because study, everything like that. But yeah, just trying to go, and I've really fallen in love with that. That's been something I really enjoy. Like it's social aspect, but I get to do it with my partner, and it's really fun. And there's so many different elements to it, and the community is really great. And besides that, really love my music, really love my metal. Like I don't like, yeah, I guess I'll share that like on my story, but like when I'm putting music up and things like that. So I'm seeing Metallica later this year. I'm very excited for that.
Excellent.
Excited for that.
Yes.
And I saw Iron Maiden last year, and Alice Cooper and Blondie, and that was awesome. But like seeing Iron Maiden was incredible. So I'm so excited for Metallica.
That's so good.
Yeah, music's a big part of me and my life, and just it's also funny thinking back at all the different like genres I've been into in the times, like mostly like rock, but like all those different genres that fit in with different segments of my life.
Like what? What sort of genres was happening when?
So when I was like 15, it was probably like Bring Me the Horizon kind of thing. And then when I was a little bit like when I was 17, it was very much punk rock. And then really got into metal, like British wave of heavy metal. So Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and things like that. And I've been into them forever. And then just probably, you go through a bit of a new metal phase and things like that. But just like, and glam metal and all that kind of stuff, mostly metal. And I've always been a big fan of Led Zeppelin and classic rock and dad rock. I like to, when I have my like dad rock playlist on, and it's just like I have the most random songs on, and just like
a little bit of Nickelback and some Daughtry and stuff like that.
Creedence Clearwater and the Eagles and things like that. And it just, that's a very big part of me is my music, which I don't really, share a whole heap. But yeah, really, really into that too.
I love it. I love the people that sort of listen to the non-niche sort of music. I've always been like you. I've always been a metalhead. Like I think since I was probably about 13 or 14. Like as soon as I started high school, I was this angsty little teenager. Yeah. And I think everyone goes through a little bit of that emo phase, but I never grew out of it. I just think I've just morphed into like a hot emo now. Because it'll never be a phase for me. Like it's just, I have such a connection to that music, and music is such a huge part of my life. Like my Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year is actually stupid. Like the hours I have listened to is like crazy.
I had a day last week because I don't know if it's the same where you are, but the rain has not stopped. Like it's just been mental.
It's today.
It's going off, but like I had a day last week where I'd just been inside until like for 5 hours, and it was like 12 or 1 o'clock, and I'm like, I need to get out. And I did. It wasn't even a gym day, but for me to like go in my car, my gym's 20 minutes away because I'm very picky about my gyms, and just like to listen to heavy metal in my car, which I love my car. That's like, I feel like part of my personality. Listening to heavy metal in the sun on the way to the gym just made me feel like 100 times
10 times better.
Yeah.
You're like, this is the cure. This is what I needed. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I think I will never understand people that don't have a strong connection to music. Like, I can't. From the second I wake up in the morning to almost the second I go to sleep, like while I'm program writing, while I'm training, while I'm driving, like constantly.
Constant. Yeah, I agree. I'm the same.
Like, I need music while I'm doing my makeup. Like, it's like I can't do it.
Yeah, it's such a big part of me. And it's like, it's so funny. I think back to the first few artists I like, which would have been Led Zeppelin and the Gorillaz.
Mm-hmm.
So like kind of thinking like Damon Albarn and Blur and things like that. So they've always been really pivotal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a few other little bands, but those are the two like I remember being into at the first. So I feel like Led Zeppelin has just sort of morphed into all these different things as well.
That's amazing. I love that. That makes me so happy. My goodness. Okay, so we've sort of delved into a little bit of the things that set your soul on fire. So Aikido is the newest thing. So you've moved a little bit more away from bodybuilding training. So currently, what are sort of your goals in the gym, or is it just? Are you working with a coach at the moment?
I'm coachless. I'm self-coached.
Oh my goodness.
I was working with beautiful Scott and Macy, but
yes, they're amazing.
I didn't want to do bodybuilding. And it's so funny because Scott was prepping and he pulled out and we had a chat about it. And I was like, you sound like me. We're on the same wavelength. And I think I've seen a few people talk about this recently, but just like, I just got to the point where I just wasn't loving it. Like it just made me hate everything. Like it just, and I just felt like if I was to go back into a prep, it probably would affect my relationship with food. It would probably make me hate training again. I didn't really align with any federations personally, and I hated posing.
Yeah.
And I think the hating posing was the hardest bit. Like I could do everything else, but oh my gosh, the posing.
Yeah.
So it took me a while, as I kind of said, I very much focused on Aikido late last year. And then this year I started up at the gym again and I'm really loving it again. I switched gyms and I just needed a new environment. And I started off by just programming. This looks like a cool program. Like it wasn't even like probably the most optimal thing. It was like, this looks fun. I'm going to stick to it. And so I started doing that. And now I am back to training 5 days a week. And it is kind of bodybuilding style training. It's just like more, I don't know, exercises I enjoy kind of thing.
Yep.
And I'm really loving that. Like I'm doing that. I'm working on my cardiovascular fitness. I had obstructive sleep apnea and I had my tonsils and adenoids and all this removed last year. So
oh my God.
That was like in December. So a big goal of mine this year was to work on my cardiovascular health because it was affecting like
your sleep and just your breathing.
I got out of surgery and I was like, are you supposed to breathe through your nose like that? Because when I found out I had sleep apnea, it's like, yeah, you got big tonsils. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And then he, put the camera up my nose and he's like, oh, your adenoids, which are the glands like right at the back of your nose. He's like, they're covering like 70-75% of your airway. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why cardio is really hard.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Like I had them removed and then, getting into training, I was like, whoa, I can breathe.
I could breathe, like breathe.
So that's been really good for my recovery too, because I can sleep properly. So this year goals have been like cardiovascular fitness. I mentioned on my story the other day, I want to get like a VO2 max test done because I think
that'd be cool.
It sounds like hell, but it would be fun. I want to get back to doing pull-ups, like, 10 or 15, like on a system, probably at 4 at the moment. And weighted pull-ups. I feel like I've just been watching so many girls on Instagram do their weighted pull-ups. I'm like,
you're like, yeah, I want to do that.
And I think and then grading again for martial arts. So my partner and I had our first grading this year, and then he will go for his in July. I probably won't have the hours, so I'll do later this year. But that's like on my goals for this year was like get to that second grading. Those are like the main fitness goals. But like my biggest one was just falling in love with it again, and it didn't take long. It just took change in environment, a program that I really liked, and just taking a little bit of that pressure off myself of like I have to do a competition.
Exactly. And I think also you taking a little bit of that power back for yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like there's a lot of freedom in sort of being able to, especially being a coach as well, being in the fitness industry, you sort of doing what feels best for you and almost in a way like taking that pressure off you. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but like my clients come to me and they're like, I have to tick this box and this box and this box and this box. I'm like, whoa, chill. Yeah. You're not an athlete. Like you're okay. And I think as well, when we get the chance to be able to do that, take a little bit of a step back, slow down a little bit, get back to sort of the basics of what you love to do. I think that's really empowering for you as well, especially where you are. Like you're still young, like you're still you're studying now as well. You've just got a lot going for you. And I think finding that love and passion for the gym, just as the gym, I think was very vital for you.
Yeah, I think it's been a while, but it was like, oh yeah, I just need to take it back to the basics. Like literally,
Yeah.
that's all it took.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, well, I just want to ask you again. So I'm sort of going a little bit off topic, but in Japan, what were some of your favorite places? So for anyone listening who's thinking about going to Japan, you could not be listening to two people talk more who loved Japan so much. So here we go.
So I only got to go to Tokyo. It was like a last minute, like I literally said to my partner one night, I was like, I've got a presentation for you on why we should go to Japan. And I was like, I don't want to hear any questions till the end.
Did
And
you actually make a presentation?
yeah, I made like a presentation on Canva and I was like, this is why we should go. And
I love you so much. That's amazing.
Until the end. Please listen. And we convinced him, so it worked. But we just did Tokyo. I think just with work and everything going on, we're just like, listen, there's so much to do in the area. This is what we're going to do. We kind of outlined what we want to do, and then we had a few free days. I loved everything. There's nothing I didn't love. To kind of go back to other things I'm interested in that I don't talk about, I've always been such a fan of like alternative fashion as a whole, but like a lot of J fashion and specifically like gothic Lolita style.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in Shibuya, there's a place there's Shibuya 109, and then there's a place called La Forêt in Harajuku.
Mm-hmm.
So going to Harajuku was like
incredible.
I was so happy. I went into La Forêt. I spent probably $800. Like I just bought like so much awesome fashion stuff, and that was incredible. So it was really cool being able to wear that and not feel super judged, like, really express style there. That was awesome. We went for a hike out at Mount Takao. So seeing a little bit more of like the, I don't know, naturey side.
The natural beauty. Yeah. Yeah.
Be awesome. Like I think if we go back, we definitely want to do like Kyoto and stuff like that for that reason. But I loved all of it. Like there was nothing where I was like, oh, this is boring. Like every little suburb and everything we went to was like incredible. Favorite part though was Sanrio Puruland, so the Hello Kitty land.
Yes.
Which is another interest of mine. And I remember saying to my partner when I proposed this trip in like June or July last year, because I was like down bad mentally after pulling out of prep, I was like, I think this place will heal me, like Hello Kitty land. Like I was like, this is going to fix it.
This will fix me. Please, we have to go.
But yeah, it was all incredible, and it was incredible for my partner. Like he was reluctant to go because he's like, the kind of person in the relationship he wants to save, which is fair, but it just changed things for him as well. Like he's so into his martial arts, like he is loving it. So it was very life-changing for him too.
That's really good. I think honestly travel is so life-changing for so many reasons. Like I love it. And this year I've done so much more travel than I really ever have before. And I'm so grateful for the friends that I got to go with to Japan, because they have been probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, that's so good.
And that was the first time I had ever gone. And I said to them before we left, I was like, I want to do everything. I don't care. Like I barely trained while I was over there. I probably trained
I didn't train at all. Yeah.
Like we were there for 3 weeks and I trained twice in each week. Yeah. Barely. If that. It was maybe like 45 minutes to an hour, which is so unlike me, but my body needed it.
Yeah.
Well, but holy hell.
Yeah, I was doing 20 to 30,000 steps a day. Some of that was in heels or platforms.
Yeah. Like boots?
Yeah.
Yes, same. So many stairs, so many flights of fucking stairs. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. I've got some tips. If anyone does end up going to Japan, get some insoles, get some gel insoles, and learn to bandage the back of your heels because they will hurt. And your toes. I lost a toenail at one point because we walked it was after Disneyland. Our last day in Disneyland, we were walking so much those 3 days. We went to Disneyland, Disney Sea, and then Universal Studios as well in the last week. My little pinky toe, she was like, bye, I'm done. I can't walk anymore. It was bad, but so worth it. Worth it. Sorry if that was a bit gross. It was one of
those things where it's like and there's nowhere to sit because your feet are so sore and your legs are so sore, but you're like, there's so many things to do. Like I can't
sit down. That's so good. How did you navigate nutrition while you were over there? What did you sort of do? Because I get this question a lot with clients that want to travel, want to go overseas and want to go on holidays. Like I've got my specific way of how I coach clients while they're overseas. But what do you do?
I didn't do anything. Like I didn't track. I just took it as if I would not. I can't remember at the time. I think I was tracking beforehand because I was trying to build and whatever. But I just really took that time to enjoy it. Like I personally can't imagine anything worse than going to another country and having to track or being in a dieting phase. Like
Absolutely.
I know food is obviously fuel and good food is great, but it's just like the social and cultural aspects to it are so important. So for me, I realistically, well, the one thing I did, which I recommend everyone does, is have breakfast. When I was in Japan, obviously there's not a whole lot of like fresh fruit and veg kind of thing. Like I know it's weird to talk about, but like the fruit that they do have is expensive. So what we do is we go to like the 7-Eleven or the Family Mart in the
Oh
morning.
my god, I love it.
Love the Family Mart. I was a Family Mart girl when we were
Yeah.
there, and we'd get some fruit, so like apple, orange, pineapple, and I'd get a yogurt and an energy drink and maybe a sandwich or onigiri or something like that. So starting my day with a little bit of fruit, protein, and just fiber was really good because you find like if you are welcome everyone to go eat whatever they want, but you will probably feel like crap. Starting your
Absolutely.
morning with something where it's like you're getting some goodness in you, you're getting some fruit in you, is really good. And then, yeah, I just kind of ate whatever. Like I ate a whole lot of random stuff that, sweet treats and ramen and things like that. But I wasn't training, but I was doing a lot of steps. I actually came back from Japan weighing less by like a kilo, which I'm surprised about, but because I was
Wow.
eating so many like, cakes and
Yeah.
Japanese cheesecake and ramen and everything like that.
Hmm.
I think like when people do travel, obviously depending on their long-term goals and things like that, just for the most part, just try and follow that balance, right? Like understand if you are going to eat sweets or just random stuff for every meal, you're probably just going to feel like crap. So I recommend having your brekkie as like something solid, so fiber, protein, carbs, maybe some healthy fats, and whatever, because it will just make you feel better throughout the day. I find sometimes
Absolutely.
people will skip it as well because they'll just say, I'm going to have a big lunch, but leads to energy crashes. So I do really think starting something like that where you can get a cheap brekkie and still get some micronutrients and some fiber in is a really good way to start the day when you're traveling, no matter what.
I could not agree more. Like that was always my go-to, like Family Mart or Lawson. That was always just first thing in the morning. I would always buy like those little, did you see the yogurt
Yeah,
drinks?
yeah,
Like where you just shove the straw in and you can drink the yogurt? It was the best. It was so good.
yeah, they were so good.
And the little sushi rolls as well. That was like my go-to in the mornings. And I definitely found that I had a good balance in terms of if my friends wanted to go out for ramen that night. Like I hadn't eaten like authentic Japanese ramen
Mm-hmm.
in Sydney
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
So that was just like a life-changing experience for me, and I will never have ramen like that anywhere
No,
else in the world. Holy crap.
everything else.
Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, I'm definitely with you. And when clients tell me that they're going on holidays, I do just give them that same advice. Try and start your days well fueled. Even if you are going to have a little bit to drink or you're going to go out, for a big lunch or a big dinner or something like that, always try and start your day off with a good balance of nutrition. And then you're sort of setting yourself up for success for the rest of the day. Go and enjoy it. Like you said, like the biggest thing that you just said was you're in a new country. Enjoy the cultural and the social aspect of eating different foods. Like that is part of life. Like unless you're traveling over there to compete, you should not be tracking or monitoring anything.
Absolutely. I think it's just like if you're gonna it just takes out so many of the experiences. And for me, it was like, I wanted to try ramen. I wanted to try all these food places. I wanted to take part in these traditional things. And it was just really good to do that. And it was exciting. So I think taking away from that takes away from a lot of the experience. So I think, as you said, yeah, having a good brekkie, maybe taking some snacks with you. Like when we went for a hike one day, we took some like random protein bars. One was like bright pink. That was kind of weird tasting. But it was just like
Mm-hmm.
we took stuff with us. Take water. Water very important to take with you. But yeah, just enjoy it. Like have the foods that look really fun.
Absolutely, man. When I went to Disneyland, I wanted every
Yeah,
Disney shaped thing I could eat
that was
possible.
that was me at Hello Kitty Land. I was like, I need all the themed foods. Like
Like, give me the chocolate churros now. Like, I need them.
Because you're not going to get that experience again. It's not like you're going to go home and you're going to be like, really wish I didn't have that Hello Kitty shaped cake. Like, that's just not how it works. You're going to be like, oh, that was so cool. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did that. I'm so glad I ate that. That tasted really good.
Absolutely. Definitely. Definitely. My gosh, I could not agree more with that. We could talk about Japan and
I
food
know.
for hours. Okay, well, to sort of wrap up the episode, I want us to go a little bit more back to sort of your younger teenage years. And I wanted to touch on this a little bit earlier on, but we sort of got a little bit sidetracked. But during those early years of your education, in terms of you navigating your neurodivergence, how was that time for you? And what would be the advice you would give today to 13-year-old Kai?
It was a silly decision to go to a private religious school. So, that's just one point.
Thanks, mom and dad.
Like for my story, like my timeline of diagnosis, so I was diagnosed with depression at like 13 and anxiety. When I was 15, I was diagnosed with agoraphobia, and I like to chat about that when I talk about gym anxiety, because it's like I'm not someone being like, just go to the gym, get over it, because I get it. So I've
For
been
anyone listening, though, what is agoraphobia?
it's just when you're super afraid of going outside and you're just really like social anxiety to the max. I essentially had a traumatic event when I was like 15. It just made me really scared to leave the house for anything besides school. So it just made it really hard to be in public spaces, and that social anxiety just really took over. So that happened at 15. When I was 18, I was diagnosed with a tic disorder. So the motor tic disorder, if you've noticed me moving my eyebrows and whatever throughout this, that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 23, 24, I was diagnosed. So last year I was diagnosed with ADHD, and then not long before that, ASD, so autism as well. So the ADHD one was funny. I didn't really think I had it, which is funny to think about. I essentially got it because my mum wanted to get diagnosed, and because she doesn't have parents, it was harder for her. So putting me through diagnosis first made it easier. And then I saw my score, and it was like 6 out of 8, a 6 out of 9 for inattentive, and 8 out of 9 for hyperactive. And I was like, okay.
Whoa, rude.
Like the report where it was like depression in remission. Oh, OCD, that happened when I got diagnosed when I was 17. OCD, all these things. Anyway, yeah, that was a bit funny. But I think being late diagnosed, you kind of look back on things and you're like, why didn't anyone pick up on this earlier? I think this happens for a lot of women, where it kind of just gets, they don't.
Swept under the rug.
Yeah.
You're just hyperactive. You're just, yeah, yep.
Some of the OCD things, I'm like, how did the parents not pick up on that? But I guess, I was doing well in school, and, as far as like grades go, and I seemed happy, so it was fine. But a few things I would tell my younger self is two things. One is, don't be afraid to ask for help. And I talk about, like, I mean this in all sorts of senses, but especially like in school, like I was always, and I still am, like afraid to ask for help or ask questions, and it's taken me a while to get over that. But I saw something the other day that was like, you don't get extra points or extra credit for not asking for help. I
Yes.
think that's something that a lot of people need to hear, especially when they're younger. And probably the most important one is to stop caring about what other people think. I read a book by physicist Richard Feynman when I was 16, and it was about, what do you care what other people think? And I think that was something that kind of came as an epiphany when I started my business, where it's like, I've got to go from someone who has no social media presence to like putting myself out there. And then recently I've started doing reels twice a day, like posting.
Yes. You have been so adamant. Like, I feel like I'm falling behind in my coaching content, because I'm seeing her on Instagram. She's posting 2 reels, and then I go on my TikTok and she's posting on TikTok. I'm like, shit, man, I need to up my game.
Well, it's just, I took a lot for me to go from I'm so scared of what people think to, if I want to succeed or do anything, I've got to stop really caring about that. Like, I feel like I put too much care into what other people think, when half the time they're probably not thinking about me. And if they do, I don't really care. So like, I took some time earlier this year to just block people who I just don't
Yes.
Maybe I might feel like they might see my content and judge me, or I just don't feel comfortable with them being in my life kind of thing. So you kind of think about it maybe when you're early 20s where you're like, oh, I don't want to post this because someone from high school is going to see it, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone shared something of mine the other day and it got a lot of views, and then people from high school were viewing my stories.
Oh, no.
But yeah, stop caring what other people think, because you got to get to a point where you actually take accountability, and you need to, if you want to succeed, you want to do anything, you've got to really push yourself outside of your comfort zone, no matter what that is. So the sooner you can get over the, oh, what's so-and-so thinking about me, like, the better.
Are they going to judge me for that or anything like that? Yeah.
People are going to judge you regardless. So
absolutely,
go do it anyway.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be it, because I think just, stop caring what other people think. Just being true to yourself is so much better than just, faking it and, not being real and not being yourself.
Absolutely, definitely. I love that. And I think also that would go hand in hand if I was to ask you for a pieces of advice for anyone who's in the same spot as you were when you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do for work, and, going through all your different career paths and studying paths and things like that. So I think that would definitely be the same piece of advice, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And just talk to people in different fields. Like when I was making the jump, it was like getting advice and chatting to people, and not that you need people's advice to make your decisions, but getting advice from other people and kind of figuring out what you really want to do and sitting with yourself about that is really important. But yeah, definitely, like, if you are wanting to make a jump in anything, just not being afraid to ask for help, and also not really caring what other people think, and just making that decision.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I love that so much. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you so much for joining me today, honey. Honestly, it's been such a pleasure. And like I said earlier, if anyone wants to get in touch with Kai, please, find her on Instagram. She is such an incredible coach. I could not recommend her enough. And I really hope that anyone listening that has maybe struggled in the past with, coming to terms with needing help with nutrition and things like that and feeling a little bit different, you are not alone. And there are always going to be resources out there for you. You just, like Kai said, just ask for help. Just, get in touch with someone, speak to someone. And there are just a plethora of really good coaches in the industry who care, who are evidence-based, and Kai is definitely one of them. So I cannot recommend her enough. And honestly, you inspire me to be more authentic in my coaching, especially online. I think I definitely struggled for a little while in terms of like, oh, I don't want to put that content out in case, people take it the wrong way, or, I don't want to be judged by anyone for the views that I have in terms of how I coach my clients. But, the proof is in the pudding in terms of my clients' results and how they feel about my coaching and things like that. And honestly, who gives a fuck? Everyone's going to have their opinions, like you said. So,
exactly.
I love my job. I love what I do. I love who I am as a person. And I think if everyone sort of took a little piece of that, of everything that we've sort of spoken about today, I think people would care a little bit less about the judgment and more about how their life feels rather than how it looks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks again, honey. And to everyone listening, again, if you have not, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps me tremendously in keeping up this little side passion of mine. And if you want to recommend anyone in the comment section, please do so. And thank you all so much for joining us. Bye.
Bye.